Since the holiday season is upon us and we still haven't covered any special episodes on this channel, I figured, hey, why don't we cover a holiday special just in time for Christmas? Now, I thought if I'm gonna talk about a Christmas episode, I'm gonna start with the best one. Road to the North Pole is a 44-minute Emmy-nominated spectacle packed with satire, musical numbers, and some of the darkest humor Family Guy's ever done. Santa's overworked, his workshop is a nightmare, and the reindeer, they've developed a taste for flesh. But what really sets this episode apart is that moment, the home invasion scene. It's shocking, it's divisive, and in true Family Guy fashion, it's pretty hilarious. Alright, so Road to the North Pole opens like any other Family Guy episode. Okay, not really. It actually opens with Seth MacFarlane's father narrating the whole thing.
Anyway, Seth came out of my penis, and now he made this.
The Griffins are writing out their Christmas lists, and everyone's throwing out the most ridiculous requests imaginable. Peter wants a Charles in Charge lunchbox, and something called a chink, which, let's just say, didn't age well, but it's the musical number that really kicks things off.
Jessica Biel and Megan Fox wearing nothing but their socks.
The song All I Really Want for Christmas? Oh, it's a banger. I'm talking about one of those earworm songs that I didn't even realize was on repeat in my head until I found myself singing Jessica Biel and Megan Fox, but their socks while brushing my teeth. It's catchy, it's absurd, and it somehow captures everything about the over-the-top consumerism of the holidays, and of course, it wouldn't be Family Guy without Brian rolling his eyes and judging everyone's materialistic behavior.
I'm just saying it seems a bit excessive.
Kinda agree with Brian here, but let's not pretend this episode is all fun and jingles. After Stewie gets brushed off by the mall Santa in a way that's so cold it's practically Arctic, the real conflict begins. Stewie decides, very rationally mind you, that he's going to kill Santa Claus. Yup, that's where we're going, and Brian tries to avoid visiting Quagmire's dying niece in the hospital. Long story, agrees to tag along. But I mean, who wouldn't want to road trip with a baby holding a grudge and a gun? Now, Brian's first genius idea is to trick Stewie by taking him to a knockoff Santa's village. But of course, Stewie sees right through it. This kid built a time machine. Did Brian really think a guy in a cheap beard and a felt suit was gonna fool him?
I just have one more question then. Do you think I'm an idiot? Huh? Do you?
Honestly, the fact that Brian doesn't just go back to his car and go home at this point baffles me. And then there's the Canadian trucker scene. Oh boy, this one gets me every time. Stewie, deciding to ditch Brian, ditches a ride with a truck driver to make their way further north, and what starts as a simple lift quickly spirals into chaos. Stewie, being the responsible adult that he is, sets off a flare gun in the truck, causing it to crash and explode in flames. Brian catches up to him, but gets his car smashed in the process. Still, Stewie has firmly decided he's going to the North Pole, so he suggests a deal.
When Lois does that middle of the night feeding where she doesn't even open her eyes or really wake up, I'll let you take that one for me, Brian.
A Canadian mechanic comes to fix their car, but since it's dead, they just take a snowmobile and the Canadian guy's leg, as one does. By the time Brian and Stewie reach the North Pole, you're half expecting a whimsical winter wonderland. Spoiler alert, it's anything but. The first half of the episode really does a great job balancing comedy and setup. It's like they're luring you in with laughs, only to hit you with something much darker later on, and trust me, we're just getting started. When Brian and Stewie finally make it to the North Pole, you'd think they'd find a magical winter wonderland, right? You know, candy canes, toy-making elves, Santa bouncing around like he downed a gallon of eggnog. Nope, not even close. What they walk into is, well, it's a nightmare. The workshop looks like something straight out of a dystopian movie, with smog pouring out of chimneys and everything covered in a layer of industrial grime. Santa himself, forget jolly old Saint Nick, this guy's pale, gaunt, and honestly one sleigh ride away from a hospice.
I'm Stewie Griffin, and I'm going to kill you!
You know it's bad when Santa's first reaction to a death threat is pure relief. The show really leans into its satire here, presenting Santa as a tragic figure who's been absolutely crushed by consumerism. And if you thought that was bleak, wait till you meet the elves. Those poor little guys aren't the cheerful toy makers you'd expect. They're mutated from generations of inbreeding, working 24/7 in conditions that make sweatshops look humane. It's deeply unsettling, but impossible to look away from. And let's not forget the reindeer. These aren't Rudolph and friends prancing through the snow. They're wild carnivorous beasts with a taste for elf meat. At one point, Santa casually explains that the reindeer have started eating the elves who wander into the snow to die. Just when you think it can't get any darker, it does.
This is in none of the songs or poetry. It's a horror show up here. How could you let this happen?
Me? I didn't do this. Christmas did.
And then comes the standout moment, the musical number, Christmas Time is Killing Us. It's a hauntingly catchy song that lays everything bare. Santa's deteriorating health, the elves' grim fate, and the brutal reality of trying to meet the world's never-ending demands. The blend of dark humor and biting social commentary in the song is chef's kiss. It's equal parts horrifying and brilliant, and honestly, I still catch myself humming it during the holidays, probably to the horror of everyone around me. The entire sequence is Family Guy at its boldest, completely stripping away the magic of Christmas to deliver a bit of old, but still valid critique of consumerism. The message may not be too original, but the song makes amazing and memorable.
So Brian and Stewie found Santa Claus, but he sure wasn't what they expected.
An understatement of the century, Mr. McFarlane. So, if North Pole, inbred elves, and evil reindeer weren't enough for you, there's Brian and Stewie that decide to take over Santa's job since he's deathly ill and bedridden. Our duo, still determined to save Christmas, heads to their first house to deliver their presents. Of course, first they have to feed one of the inbred elves to the reindeer because that's what they eat. Don't pretend like you didn't know that. And right off the bat, everything falls apart. Yes, that was a pun, it was intended, it may be bad, but I don't care, love it. They crash the sleigh into a tree, leave the presents on the roof, and somehow manage to lock themselves out of the house. At this point, it's less about saving Christmas and more about starring in their own true crime special. But then, things escalate in a way that only Family Guy could pull off. The homeowner, Dan, comes downstairs to investigate.
What are you doing in my house?
We're Santa Claus.
Yeah, you're Santa Claus. That's why you broke in through the window. I'm calling the cops.
Of course, Stewie, being, well, Stewie, grabs a baseball bat and knocks the guy out. Stewie's justification?
He was gonna call the cops, man! You can't call the cops on Santa!
Because apparently that's the hill he's willing to die on. They put the man in the closet when his daughter comes down to get a drink of water, along with her mother, who also gets a bat to the head for good measure. I think the most unsettling part is the screaming of the voice actress playing the kid. It just sounds too realistic, so kudos to her, but So, we've got an unconscious dad, a mom who didn't stand a chance, and a tied-up kid who's definitely going to need therapy for life. Brian, ever the optimist, is trying to clean up this absolute disaster they've caused, muttering something about duct tape and fixing this. Stewie, on the other hand, is more concerned about maintaining their ridiculous cover as Santa's helpers. What's wild is that at this point, they're still trying to make this work. Brian's scrubbing blood off the carpet, Stewie is adjusting his Santa hat, and the family, well, they're just sitting there, bound, and probably questioning every life choice that led to this moment. But then, the moment of realization hits. While Brian is upstairs looking for the supposed other kid, Stewie mentioned he discovers there's only one bedroom.
Do you have a brother? Well, then who the hell is John? Oh my God, we're in the wrong house.
And that, my friends, is the cherry on top of this chaotic, blood-soaked Christmas Sunday. All this destruction, and they weren't even supposed to be there. If you thought the chaos ended with Stewie and Brian realizing they're in the wrong house, think again. The home invasion scene became one of the most talked about moments in Family Guy history, and for good reason. Fans took to online forums like Reddit, splitting into two camps. Those who thought the scene was a bold move, and those who thought it went way too far. The threads are still alive today, full of debates ranging from "this is genius satire" to "what the hell was that?" But here's where it gets really wild. Some viewers were so convinced the dad died from Stewie's baseball bat assault that the show's writers had to address it during the DVD commentary. Yes, they had to clarify that the dad was not dead, just, severely concussed and possibly traumatized forever, because apparently needing to confirm that your holiday special didn't include an on-screen murder is now a normal thing. After Brian and Stewie's disastrous attempt to save Christmas, they turned to the only option left, exposing Santa's deteriorating condition to the world.
Hopeful citizens worldwide woke up to disappointment this morning when they discovered no gifts from Santa under their Christmas trees. Local officials are going with the theory that everyone was bad this year. The investigation continues into this mysterious...
Wait! I know what happened to Christmas!
Their message, broadcast on live television, is as blunt as it is effective. They plead for humanity to scale back their holiday demands, asking everyone to request just one gift a year to relieve Santa's crushing workload. And shockingly, the world listens. The following Christmas, Santa's back to his old, well, less horrifying self, the elves have recovered, the reindeer are no longer feral monsters, and the workshop is no longer a toxic wasteland. It's a bittersweet ending, but one that manages to reclaim a little bit of the holiday spirit after the bleak journey. So let's wrap this up. Road to the North Pole isn't exactly reinventing the wheel when it comes to Christmas messages. Heck, even the Grinch had the maybe we're too greedy thing locked down decades ago. But what Family Guy does here is take that message, slap it in the face with a candy cane, and drag it through a reindeer-infested wasteland. It's ridiculous, and yeah, at the same time, it's pretty damn funny. But Road to the North Pole is more than mere shock value. At times, it's almost kinda brilliant. Sure, some critics at the time found it too dark, and I get it. Watching Santa cough up blood isn't exactly It's a Wonderful Life, but obviously that's what makes this episode stand out. It's messy, chaotic, chaotic and pushes every boundary, but isn't that the point? Family Guy has never been about playing it safe. Speaking of unforgettable, don't miss our episode on how Brian Griffin ruined Family Guy. It's a deep dive into how everyone's favorite talking dog went from lovable intellectual to, well, the guy everyone loves to hate.